Welcome to the place inside, the place for alternative news, the place where the unseen, consciousness, science, and spirituality meet. The place where human beings who want to take action have an appointment. The place inside, with your host, Laurence Galian, an intellectual, musician, a spiritual teacher, tarotist, and writer. You are now entering the place inside, the home of the metaphysical freedom fighter.
Welcome to the place inside. I am your host, Laurence Galian. Later tonight on our show, I am going to give you your new mantra. You are also going to hear about a very potent new freedom technique called Mudras. It's all coming up in tonight's show. I have the feeling that this show is going to be very important because I have exciting information to share with you and some amazing photographs that I have put in the video version of this podcast. The place inside is your place. So let's get started. Michael Tazarian shares the following, quote, "The enemy that we face, which has haunted our world for millennia, will not concede of its own will. It will not yield or give ground. It is in fear, but has combined its fear with occult knowledge, and this combination makes it lethal in the extreme. It seeks to humiliate the good, the pure, and the virtuous. It is the enemy of truth and freedom. It cannot triumph because the force it vainly opposes is eternal and self-sustaining. The problem of evil is, however, not solved with a clenched fist, but with an open, receptive, and mutable mind. These characteristics are represented by the Archangel Michael and his mighty sword, Arthur's Excalibur, Robin's flaming arrows, and Merlin's serpentine wand. We overcome the direst enemies with knowledge, not might. We seek revelation to prevent revolution, to overcome evil with the force of our example, not the example of our force. We use psychological weaponry and move with the conviction in our cause and sovereign power." Unquote. The new edition of my book, Beyond Duality, The Art of Transcendence, focuses on the power of the number 3. Now you can find Beyond Duality, The Art of Transcendence by going to Amazon.com and looking up Laurence Galian, Galian, or actually entering in Beyond Duality, The Art of Transcendence. The number 3 has to do with many, many ancient forces and powers. It has to do with the ancient Druids. There were, for example, 3 hierarchies within the Druidic educational system. And as you know, those who have studied about me know that I have become a Shonake in the Irish traditional system. I have studied with them for several years and have been awarded this title. Now you also know that the Jesuits, they educated based on 3s. And flags are tricolors. You see the number 3 all throughout the world. There is also a corrupt form of the ancient knowledge of the number 3 in Christianity with their strange concept of the Trinity, that there are 3 gods in one. A strange, bizarre concept, if I've ever heard of one. In Christian theology, we have these devils and demons running around trying to tempt you. All of this is external. For the Egyptians, the human was a tripartite being. He or she had to confront the dark aspects of his or her being. Gurdjieff knew about this and taught about this. The Druids worked on the darker aspects of the self. This is how the whole ancient metaphysical traditional schooling worked. And this is what the Christian rulers and leaders sought to completely delete and remove from the world. Individuals refused in the past several hundred years to look at the dark parts of their beings. This is why there was the terrible Christian, the Catholic invasions of the Holy Land of Jerusalem. This is why there was the wholesale slaughter by the Catholic Church, the church supposedly of the love of the prophet Jesus, where they would slaughter the Jewish people, where they would slaughter women and children. That is why I urge you, it is essential to dare study yourself. Some of you are real experts at studying many subjects, but you dare not study yourself. Why? Why are there tyrants, I ask you? Because society refuses to look within themselves. The world leaders, including spiritual leaders, do not explore the dark within themselves. This is a great problem with spiritual teachers. They spend years and years learning, both through practice and through formal education in books, about their spiritual bodies. However, they do not have any kind of psychological introspection. Yes, they are told to get rid of their bad traits, and they do. But they have no idea why they have desires to do those bad traits. They grow into adults never knowing their inner psychology. And what happens? They abuse the women in their ashrams, in their tekkas, in their spiritual groups and organizations and churches. They get into power trips. They start buying wealthy houses, cars, clothing, jewelry, swimming pools, retreat houses, and so forth, so on. They have no idea why they are obsessed with wealth. It is because they never dared to truly know themselves. One way of working, of knowing yourself, is with sacred sound. Specifically, theta frequencies. Theta frequencies are from 6 to 10 hertz. Hertz is a scientific term meaning cycles per second. However, you must not work with 6.6 cycles per second or 6.6 hertz. It will cause depression. Use the CDs and MP3s of the experts, such as the great Jonathan Goldman and Dr. Jeffrey Thompson and the Monroe Institute. And also I offer humbly the CDs produced by myself. There are a lot of people out there just fooling around with these frequencies, and this is playing with dynamite, because 6.5, 6.7, 6.8 hertz, good. 6.6 hertz, you're going to cause the person to go into a deep depression. In theta meditation, it's just you sit down and you listen with headphones on. The headphones are essential. And you listen to MP3s. CDs are better because they work with binaural beats, and we'll get into that at another time. But with the frequency response in CDs, it's much better than many MP3s. So while you're doing this, you can really face yourself. So I ask you to question beliefs that you accepted as a child. Question them. Throw out the bullshit that you were taught about how to behave, what you should be doing, and how to be successful in life. It's time to uncover your hidden fears that cause evasive behavior. You know what I mean. You avoid certain people and certain situations. It's time to face that and get over that. You are becoming a warrior. You are on the adventure now. I know many of you are afraid of life. I was. I admit it. It is not an easy fight to get past this, but you can. Honor and understand who you are. Don't fall into the lies that psychologists are crazy and will make you crazy. No, the friends that tell you that are not your friends. They are people who do not want to know themselves, who are scared shitless, to be honest, to know themselves. Most psychologists are people who are intensely interested in the powers of the mind. They can make you more congruent, meaning they can help all the parts of you to work together to achieve your goals. In other words, so you are not working against yourself, so you are not, quote, driving with the emergency brake on, unquote. Also study NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming. Study Ouspensky's book, The Fourth Way. If you want a relationship, you will have one if you keep working toward your goal of becoming a metaphysical freedom fighter. I'm sorry to say it, but I will tell you that your goal, unbeknownst to you, may be to make mommy or daddy happy. And you might not be aware of this. You really have to throw this shit out now. All mystic paths speak of something. It's known as the light body. Quickly, let's talk about the word mysticism. In a general sense, every one of the world's major religions has an exoteric, meaning outer form of worship, meant for the general public, and an esoteric or inner form of worship meant for those who want a direct experience of divinity. The esoteric path of a particular religion is called its mystical path. For example, Sufism is mystical Islam. Since we are involved in studying the mystical here in the place inside, I will tell you that the mystical path always contains mysteries that would seem very strange to those following the exoteric or outer form way. One very famous Sufi who knew Muhammad, peace be upon him personally, was asked, what did Muhammad teach you? And this is what he answered. I can tell you 50% of what he said. If I told you the other 50%, the religious authorities would put me to death. Okay, now, so that's a little example of exoteric and esoteric teachings. Yes, we know about the exoteric teachings of many spiritual leaders, but unless you study the mystical forms of their teachings, you are never going to know the esoteric path. This was true in the past for all the major world religions. For instance, the Catholic Church is a kind of evil in and of itself because they killed people, not just because these people did not believe in what the Catholic Church believed, but all those witch hunts and so forth, well, they were often really just about going after a rich widow's property. I'm very serious here. The Catholic Church wanted money and power. We know this. And so if they could accuse someone of heresy in order to obtain their land or their house or their jewelry, their wealth, they would in no time flat have the church authorities declare this person a heretic. Please note to self, as they say, yes, today we are having a lot of problems with Muslims who are extremist, of course. But let us not be so quick to forget that the major Christian church for over 1,000 years was the Catholic Church. It was just as extremist, just as murderous, just as cunning and evil as the worst terrorist that you can imagine today. The Catholic Church would drown whole cities in floods of human blood. The Catholic Inquisition was no different than the Taliban. Now, one of the secret esoteric teachings of all mystical paths, again, these are the secret ways to directly experience the spiritual world that are hidden from the general public, is that each human being has a quote-unquote light body, L-I-G-H-T. Now, 99.999% of all humans are trapped in their outer form and do not realize that they have this light proton body. The light body can survive death and travel throughout the universe. The light body can leave the outer form while the outer form is still living and travel through the universe. When Jesus, upon him be peace, was transfigured in front of his apostles, what do you think he was doing? He was revealing to them his light body. The light was shining forth because he opened up the outer shell, the outer form. He threw away that outer form for the moment so that they could see his inner light body. He took two of his most advanced apostles. Again, here the concept of the advanced secret information for the advanced students. I studied Aikido for several years in New York City and on Long Island, with a 6th degree and a 4th degree black belt. From my knowledge of the martial arts, one fact is clear. One must learn balance. One must develop a living awareness of the hara, the center of balance in the body, approximately 2 inches below the navel. What can we take from this to become better metaphysical freedom fighters? Well, first, learn Aikido. It is a highly effective self-defense technique that is based on becoming the immovable center of the universe. I want to take you to a more profound level. That's why I'm talking about Aikido now. As you know, recently, the cable networks are ramping up their UFO shows. The History Channel, Nat Geo, and the Discovery Channel, among others. Something is clearly afoot. Something is going on. You need to go beyond just talking about these subjects that's interesting you. It's time to act. It's time for all good men and women to engage in profound action. I think the History Channel did a quite good production with their Ancient Alien show, but personally I despise Nat Geo with their quote-unquote experts who completely lack any sign of a heart or emotions. They love their soft little academic chairs and answers to things. They think this will protect them from, you want to know what? From their intense fears. Yes, they're scared to death. Now, we're talking about mystics and mysticism because I want you to have the firmest foundation, the firmest balance you can have, metaphysically speaking. The mystic is concerned with one thing and one thing only: direct experience with the ultimate reality. If you can build your freedom fight on the foundation of ultimate reality, just imagine how effective and powerful you will be. Nothing can knock you off your metaphysical feet, so to speak. We should all know how Jesus, peace be upon him, spoke about building your house on rock, not sand. Good advice. Don't build your spiritual armory on a shaky foundation. Build it on the ultimate foundation, the ultimate reality. Free yourself of fear. Fear is the mind fuck, as Paul Williams says. Think about the ocean. What do you have if you're floating on top of the ocean? You have a lot of waves. You have to deal with a lot of up and down and bobbing in the water. You have to deal with unexpected rogue waves and so forth. But I am teaching you to go deeper down into the ocean. The more deeply you descend into the ocean, the less waves you encounter. Until when you are getting very close to the ground, the bottom of the ocean, you are not encountering waves at all. Until finally you are at the ground of all being, the ultimate foundation of the ocean, the bottom of the ocean, where all is still, all is peaceful. From this point, you act. From this point, you think. From this point, your mind is more powerful than 1,000,000 suns. Do you hear me? There are people plotting your destruction at this very moment. There are people writing up reports and dossiers for the FBI and all sorts of other alphabet black ops agencies. Reports and dossiers about you. Yes, you. There are people plotting the control of the human race. There are people plotting the domination and enslavement of the human race. Are you going to be a person who does something about it? Or are you going to pretend that it isn't really all that serious and go back to your video games? Make your decision. I want you to look at a little book by Joseph Campbell. It's called The Hero's Journey. This is an amazing book. It'd just take you a day or two to read it. This book really will not only outline for you what your journey is going to be like, what it's all about. It will show you the pitfalls to look out for, what to expect, and as you read it, you will identify all sorts of individuals that you have read about and hopefully have known personally. And you have seen how these archetypes have worked in their life. Joseph Campbell, it's called, I believe it's The Hero's Journey. I will check on that for you. Okay, I need to correct myself, but I just checked on the internet for you. And the name of the book is The Hero with 1,000 Faces. Again, The Hero with 1,000 Faces. The author is Joseph Campbell. That's spelled C-A-M as in Mary, P, B as in boy, E-L-L. Joseph Campbell. The Hero with 1,000 Faces. Right now it's selling for $10 on Amazon. This book can change your life. I was amazed to find out when I was younger and was watching for the first time the Star Wars movies, I realized very quickly on that the screenwriter, the person who was doing this movie, knew esoteric, mystical information. And I was asking myself, as I was watching it, how could just someone from Hollywood know this? Well, I started to do a little research. And as I know many of you know by now, that the director of Star Wars, well, who did he study with? Who was his guru, if you will? It was the great Joseph Campbell, who knew truly who and what a hero is. Now, don't listen to all this bullshit, this negative stuff about Joseph Campbell that is out there. People, I want you to tell you, I have lived long enough to know that people will try to bring down anyone that tries to expand human consciousness. Okay? Everyone has faults. You can find, if you dig in the closet of any human being, there's skeletons in everybody's closet. Okay? That is the truth. We're human beings. We are not perfect. But the fact is that those people, those great men and women who have helped to expand our awareness, are the victims of people who despise them, who do not want to have their consciousness expanded because it involves work, it is uncomfortable. So they will pull down the Nietzsches of the world. They will pull down the Ayn Rands of the world. They will pull down the great Jungs of the world. And they will pull down the Sigmund Freuds of the world. And now, believe it or not, they're going after Joseph Campbell. Well, just don't pay any attention to this baloney. If you want to be a hero, read this amazing book. I'm sorry I had to go a little off topic there, but the information I just gave you is worth its weight in gold. So, start working on your serpent lightning rod now if you haven't done so already. Remember that the detailed directions to build a serpent lightning rod are in my book, Beyond Duality, The Art of Transcendence. I truly want you to have a copy of this for very little money. I am not out to bullshit you. I want you to have a copy of this for very little money. Do you have your copy of Beyond Duality, The Art of Transcendence? Please get it now before it sells out. It has almost sold out. I promised you that. They have asked me to write an afterword for a second edition, and that second edition is almost ready to be published. We have the cover, we have my afterword, etc., etc. But most importantly, I want you to get working on your serpent lightning rod, because there are going to be many psychotronic devices I am going to have you build, and others that I am going to ask you to buy. And remember, I do not make any money from these other items that I'm going to ask you to buy, but you will need to learn to work these metaphysical devices. Okay? And you know as well as I do, I am not sending you emails saying that for $79.95, and if you sign up with my newsletter, you can get Beyond Duality. I am telling you, you can get a used copy on Amazon tonight. Okay? Remember, we do not encourage or even hint about physical violence on this show. Those who live by the sword die by the sword. Or more precisely, in the most modern translations, more accurate translations, that the prophet Jesus, upon him be peace, said those who draw the sword die by the sword. But as we are talking about what I call subtle weapons, these are weapons that function in the subtle spheres, on the levels of our being that are beyond the physical. Know this: the physical level of existence is the least real of all levels. Let that sink in a bit. The least real. In the great series Taken, the cute little hybrid girl says these wise words: sometimes the best way to move into the unknown is to take familiar steps, small steps. Just do ordinary things to deal with something that is in no way ordinary. We're always going someplace new, all the time. Familiar things just let us pretend that we aren't moving into unfamiliar territory. Take the small familiar steps and you try to be honest, not to live as if nothing had changed, but still to go on with your life. But there are times when what you need is a piece of how things used to be, unquote. We know now that we can't go home anymore. The good old USA is gone. Mom and pop stores are gone. Our beautiful way of life has been stolen by the big, greedy corporations. Only tiny pockets remain of a once great nation. Now, are you doing your reading? Don't slack off from your reading. You need to wake up to your cosmic calling. You need to activate your DNA. What is a mudra? These are subtle hand gestures known by the masters in India, the ones who knew about the flying craft and the visitors from outer space, and put this in their books called the Vedas and Mahabharata. Mudras were also known by my personal hero, Guru Rinpoche, otherwise known as Padmasambhava. He was able, alone with his beautiful and powerful consort Yeshe Chogal, to defeat very dark forces attacking India. These techniques are as alive and powerful today as they were several hundred years ago. And finally, mudras were known in ancient Christianity and by the great Egyptian adepts and masters. So let's delve into mudras. A mudra, again, is a hand gesture used in Hindu and Buddhist ceremonies. Mudras are a non-verbal mode of communication and self-expression, consisting of hand gestures and finger postures. They are a symbolic sign based on finger patterns taking the place but retaining the efficacy of the spoken word, and are used to evoke in the mind ideas symbolizing divine powers of the deities themselves. The composition of a mudra is based on certain movements of the fingers. In other words, they constitute a highly stylized form of gestural communication. It is an external expression of inner resolve, suggesting that such non-verbal communications are more powerful than the spoken word. Let's talk about mudras from a basic perspective first. This is the science of mudras. Our 5 fingers represent the elements of the cosmos. With the help of our fingers, we can make gestures or patterns to balance the imbalanced cosmic elements of the body. These finger positions, mudras or switches, instantly alter the elemental composition and remove energy blockages in the human microcosm. The tip of the thumb represents the center of the fire element. The tip of the index finger is the center for the air element. The tip of the middle finger is the center for the sky element. The tip of the ring finger is the center for the earth element. And finally, the tip of the little finger is the center for the water element. We can effectively combine and balance the 5 elements of our body by forming different positions with our fingertip pressure. The placement of each finger pattern alters the effect of each cosmic element within our being. We can therefore influence energies from these elements of the universe to balance the body. It is within our own body that nature has endowed us with a power to control the cosmic elements. If we utilize them in a proper way, we can achieve positive state of mind and health. Now I'm going to tell you about something called SSRM-Tech. This is a government project that you probably don't know about, but need to. SSRM-Tech can read minds. Invented by a Russian, it works by having the individual. Right now they are using it with people traveling on airplanes. These people look at a wide screen with a picture embedded with subliminal words such as quote-unquote bomb. The passenger will then press a button. Now, he or she will press a button for each picture. If the picture contains the subliminal word, in this example, quote-unquote bomb, the potential terrorist, shall we say, will be attracted to such words as quote-unquote bomb, and so forth. Of course, you realize the potential for abuse with the SSRM-Tech, and how, of course, soon it will be used in places outside of airports, such as your local police stations or your local interrogation station in perhaps Afghanistan or Pakistan, and maybe even the courtrooms of the future. Can hackers of the future peer inside our heads? Starting in 2007, the Washington Post wrote about how the government is trying to control minds. People will walk into an army recruitment office, for example, and then EM and magnetic mind control weaponry, psychotronic weaponry, is then used to read their minds, sometimes for decades. Psychotronic weapons are enslaving the minds of many humans to great success. Success in the minds of the evil masters. A patent has been granted for a microwave weapon that places voices into people's heads. Now, you have heard of Project Bluebeam and the return of Jesus perhaps in the sky, or an extraterrestrial attack, and that voices are going to start, people are going to start hearing voices in their heads because microwave weapons are going to beam voices into people's heads. And you may be liable to say, this is absolute craziness. I cannot believe that they're going to be able to project voices into people's heads. Well, hey, a patent was granted for a device to implant voices into people's heads. it is believed that harp may be used for mind control. Where and what is harp? Please, for those who know about this, bear with me for just a moment. It consists of 180 antennas, a 7-story building, and it is located in Alaska. It uses ELF waves, which means extremely low frequency waves. Now, I am not talking about bass notes here. This is way below the threshold of human hearing. In fact, it is not even involved in hearing. These frequencies are not Hertz frequencies. They are non-Hertzian scalar frequencies. J.F. McDonald, science advisor to President Johnson, said that we must invent weapons that would impair the brains of very large populations. I wonder what populations and from what country? And I also ask the question, is this invention what we now call HARP? It is postulated that HARP influences behavior modification. HARP pulses into the ionosphere brain frequencies. A brilliant man, again, who is being disparaged by many people. Beware of this disparagement. Again, another thing comes to mind. Not just people who do not want to become aware of themselves, but remember when I was telling you about how an agent can be as many as 10 individuals on a website. A person working for the FBI, CIA, or one of the alphabet agencies can impersonate 10 different individuals on the internet just to disrupt a conversation, just to destroy a good thread, an important thread in a conversation that's going on in the web. And these people are out to destroy certain people who can expand the mind, like Terence McKenna, who taught about mind expansion. Remember how we spoke about that your mind belongs to you. Well, this wonderful man, Andrija Puharich, MD, he lived from February 1918 to January 3, 1995. He was an army officer in the early 1950s. During that time, he was in and out of Edgewood Arsenal Research Laboratories. I'm going to mention many places that are going to ring bells with you. And Camp Dietrich, meeting with various high-ranking officers and officials, primarily from the Pentagon, CIA, and Naval Intelligence. The Edgewood Arsenal is currently officially called the Edgewood Area of Aberdeen Proving Ground. You know these places. They are heavy hitters. Puharich was a medical and a parapsychological researcher, medical inventor with many patents, and author. Now, I just want to insert very quickly here that people who work with music therapy and sound healing need to take notice, as well as those who purchase CDs by these individuals. Okay, you know that if you look on YouTube, there are many sound healing videos, and they will say theta wave frequencies. Well, Puharich discovered that certain specific frequencies, get this, frequently used in sound healing, immature, unprofessional sound healing, produce some horrible effects. For example, 6.6 hertz produces depression in individuals. On the other hand, 7.8 hertz produces sensations of euphoria, while 10.3 can start a riot. One thing that Michael Tazarian noted, which I thought was fascinating, is that he believes that we should use the tools of the evil alien warlords and their minions against them. For example, they will utilize symbols and colors that have intense meaning to our unconscious minds. He suggests that we play the same game and use these symbols and colors on the books we write, the albums we sell, the stores we open up. After all, how are we to compete with the big mega corporations who are only out to steal our money, unless we fight fire with fire? I am sure you have noticed that along with this podcast, I create videos that have photographs and pictures that intensify, explain, and expand upon that which I am saying. Today's broadcast is no different. You will see somewhere in the great amount of photographs of numerous hand gestures of the Mudras. I can't always guarantee when they will come up and appear, as I spend many long hours creating this podcast for you. And since I am also a composer who composes the background music for these podcasts, I do not have time to create elaborate videos as much as I'd love to do so. Hopefully in the future I can do this, but right now I must place my time where it is needed the most. We've only got so much wax to burn on this candle of life that's been handed to us, and we must use it in the best way possible. When you wake up in the morning, do you go to your computer, turn it on, and read email or check your Facebook, etc.? In other words, are you wasting your time? These programs are supposed to be about you living your life. They are not supposed to be your life. But we've all fallen victim at one time or another during our lives to this great evil. You know as well as I do that nothing gets done if you begin the day by opening up your email. My suggestion, start the day with your choice: meditation, martial arts practice, yoga, qigong, profound reading, praying from the heart, heart-centered prayer and meditation, writing for an hour, exercising, preparing yourself for a power breakfast filled with nutrients, and other useful activities. We must do a show on nutrients and vitamins. Some of them are just bullshit and do nothing. But some of them truly produce powerful effects in your system. For over 35 years, I have tested nutrients and vitamins out on myself. I have experimented upon myself. I have combined many of these nutrients. I can tell you what works and what is absolute bullshit. There is many of these tablets, especially the tablets, you just piss or shit out. You really need capsules because the powder is much more easily absorbed by your system. Okay, but we will get on to that at another time. You know, I have one video up that teaches you how to produce an all-natural, no side effect antidepressant for those of you who are feeling that life is not worth living or is getting you down. I want you to know something. Never, and I mean never, think about ending your life. You must know how the story ends. I am sure most of you would never buy a book you love and you're really getting into it, and then just throw it out before you can read how the book ends, how the story ends, what happens to the character you love. So how can you possibly think of ending your life when you don't know yet what is going to happen? You know how in books amazing things can happen to various characters. And you know for a fact that this happens in life. There is no way an author can write about this if it didn't already happen. There is no way that you can want something unless it is possible for you to have it. Back to mudras. Mudra is, as we know, an Indian term, but I am going to expand on that now. An Indian term for seal or circuit. Essentially, we are connecting our fingers and thumbs, or our fingers with other fingers, to create circuits. The OK sign, which is usually indicated by connecting the pad of the index finger to the thumb pad, is essentially a basic mudra for focus. Mudras form, now listen to this, electrical circuits in the body which influence our emotional, physical, and mental states. They are, like breath work, chakra work, and visualizations, another method to connect to specific frequencies easily. There are mudras for improving concentration and focus, mudras for the immune system, connection to spiritual realms. There's pretty much a mudra for everything. Now, mudras are part of what we talked about. Remember the word siddhi and the term siddhi powers? Siddhi powers are incomprehensible to the Western civilization man's purely materialistic interpretation of the universe. However, the universe is not material after all. It is the projection of consciousness. Siddhi powers are gained by bringing one's awareness to causation, where the mind is most powerful and where the laws of nature reside, one can then create extraordinary outcomes in the projected so-called, quote-unquote, material world. A fully actualized yogi's mind is expanded, whereby his awareness is always established at the source of causation. A fully actualized yogi's mind is expanded, whereby his awareness is always established at the source of causation. Source? What do I mean by that? Remember that earlier I was talking about the source of all reality, the ultimate reality. For such a yogi, all the laws of nature reside within his conscious mind. He is one with nature. All of nature is his nature. Therefore, he always has the laws of nature at his command.